Hey there. Welcome back to my Conversations with No One, where I try to share my experience of living in a state of somewhat non-identification with my duality. This fourth conversation, which I call Conversations with Someone, are inspired by interactions that I have with people online, both on my YouTube and other places. Today I want to share another consequence of my non-identification with duality. I've had a few conversations here about consequences because I feel that many people seeking or studying non-duality focus more on what they perceive they'll gain from it and overlook the reality that this process is about letting go of things our dual characters rely on to create our sense of self. I'm not sure who said this, and please let me know if you do, but one of my favorite quotes that really resonated with me is, "The problem with most seekers of enlightenment is that they want to be there when it happens." I'm including this in my Conversations with Someone thread because of a very interesting conversation I had in the comments section of the second conversation. It's getting confusing now, isn't it? That led the commenter to take a deeper look into their own motivations for seeking. That to me is significant. It feels significant and worth sharing, because anything that inspires us to question ourselves at a core level is valuable. The questions, it seems, for me anyway, seem to be more important than the answers in a lot of ways. Finding answers is the end of questioning and the end of learning, the end of evolving. And I feel it's important to remain in a state of open curiosity. The question that started this conversation was I seeking when I experienced my paradigm shift? And the answer is no. I was learning about unconditional love when it happened. I go into that in a lot more detail in my conversation, What Was Awakening Like?, if you're interested in hearing about that. So I replied to the commenter that after that light bulb went on, my love was no longer a reaction to external things, and I was fascinated to learn that apparently many folks who share the non-dual perspective say that the world they perceive still has a significant impact on them. And I found this pretty curious. I mean, it's possible that some of the folks this refers to are students and believers of non-duality, and yet still retain their identification with their character, or maybe that they experience something similar to me but simply choose to create meaning in the world they experience to better interact with it with love and empathy. I'd be really interested to hear from any of you who find themselves experiencing this. And this brought up a curious moment I had during the second part of my paradigm shift. The first part was my ego death, and that lasted about a year. But the second paradigm shift seems to match the awakening trope that I've heard other people speak of. And that happened over several days, if not weeks, and was a series of euphoric and mind-blowing realizations, to say the least. One of these experiences was that I was existing outside of my own time and space, seeing the totality of my perceived existence, the entire timeline, as it were. And from this non-place, I understood that I got to choose what my next experience of existence was going to be like. So I had my non-awakened experience, where I believed entirely of my character. And now I was in a place where I got to choose anywhere on the spectrum, from absolute immersion into the material world and my character, from that end to the far reaches of completely, I guess, transcended is the best word I can think of. Both ends of the spectrum seemed unlikely. I looked at it and I kind of instantly knew that I probably couldn't have willfully gone back to being asleep. And the idea of being some transcended master, to me, that state of transcendence, that's where we all started. And that's what we will continue when we experience dying. It's this brief moment of experience that's interesting. So what would be the point of ending this experience early through transcendent enlightenment? So I also understood that no matter what I chose at that moment, I'd be placing myself on a place, on a path, on a journey. It would be part of my ongoing journey, not a final destination that I was choosing. And I also realized that I'm always choosing and can always choose something different moment by moment. So at that time I chose a state where I still identified with my character and kept the motivation to express my experience through my external creativity. This seems to be anyway, a common stage of enlightenment journey, I say with quotes, where we want to help save the world and reduce the suffering of our fellow humans. The feeling that we have escaped something holding us back from appreciating and healing and being grateful and thriving. And it's only natural that our first instinct is to want to help others do the same. Now this version of me I was choosing to be was completely awake and yet still engaged in the roller coaster of life. I wanted to have all the same experiences as before, but this time from a place of authenticity and with my eyes open. I wanted to be there to enjoy my new paradigm to the fullest. That lasted about 5 or 6 years and was actually really quite the ride. I made sure to enjoy every moment of it, even the excruciatingly painful ones, because at a very deep level I understood that this phase would come to a natural end one day as my journey moved on, and it finally did a couple years ago. If I'm to be honest, it's probably a little sooner than I was hoping. But it happened when it was supposed to happen. It was as if at that moment the need to be someone and to do something evaporated, and I was content just being and experiencing whatever this moment is. This was when a lot of the external world stopped having much of an impact on me, because I was no longer participating in assigning a personal meaning to the things in it. Everything is perfect, so everything has the same value. Assigning things as good or bad becomes completely meaningless, because everything just leads to something else. Every moment leads to another moment. Things we call good lead us to bad things. Things that we think of as bad can lead us to good things. Beginnings create endings, living creates dying. And none of these moments are predictable enough to know how they will compare to the others. So what's the point? Why waste the energy pretending one way or another? However, that doesn't mean my experience of life is meaningless. If nothing has a specific meaning, then everything has equal meaning. Everything is just as important as everything else. All the beginnings, all the endings, and everything in between. And it's beautiful and precious because it's impermanent. And within that experience, I recognize the impact the world has on others, and I care about their experiences. Suffering may not be completely real to me anymore, but within our dual experience, it's very real to everyone around me. And I choose to give meaning to their experiences. I choose to engage with their suffering where and when I can. But I no longer feel the need to save the world because it doesn't need saving. It's creating itself. It's on a journey. And I support all causes, but I have no cause of my own other than to try to make the journey of those who interact with me a bit easier, if I can. And to just try to leave a positive wake behind me as I go. So thanks again for listening. I appreciate you being here on this beautiful day, and hope you have a good one.